Happy almost Friday to one and all. This is episode 32 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you once again for joining me. If you're doing so on the YouTube channel, don't forget to click like, smash that subscriber bell, or if you're joining me on the audio platforms such as Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, or Amazon Music, please, if you enjoy the content, click like and subscribe. So given as we're just 4 days from Christmas, who hasn't done all of their shopping yet? Ooh. Online retailing makes it a lot easier than it was back in the day when you would be fighting it out at the malls. Now, that being said, I do enjoy this sort of communal atmosphere, the excitement, because I can remember being a kid, just the excitement of holiday season, whether it was Christmas or Hanukkah or Christmaka. Or in my case, the fact that my birthday is at the end of this month. It's, oh, Jeremy gets double presents. Oh, he gets triple presents. All that kind of stuff. But given as many of us, and I hope when I say this, that many of us are in a festive mood, maybe we get a little time off from work, maybe we even get to go away for the holidays. Why not talk Christmas movies? Some of my favorites. And of course, feel free to weigh in with some of your favorites in the comment section. There's two classifications for me. There are my 5 favorite Christmas movies, non-Die Hard, non-Lethal Weapon edition, and then the 5 favorite movies with those 2 films placed among the top 5. So I'm going to start with the list including those 2 movies. And I should preface this by saying, Bruce Willis, who I absolutely adore, and it's so sad that at really such a young age that his career is over, he has talked about the fact that in his estimation, Die Hard's not a Christmas movie. It's an action film. It's a story of a marriage that has fallen on hard time. You know, you could get into all of the kind of under the surface subtext and, well, what's this movie really about? Bruce, I love you. Die Hard's a Christmas movie. It is not an accident that is set at Christmas time. Given the stakes and the circumstances, the setup probably only happens at Christmas. Maybe you could say there's another holiday, but Nakatomi Plaza being that empty, it's because it's Christmas Eve. This is not a coincidence. It's not a random day that, well, it happens to take place during Christmas. So Die Hard is my favorite Christmas movie of all time. And I don't know that I would necessarily put Lethal Weapon second. See, that's where I don't like to get into actual rankings because those can change by the day. But I would say Die Hard, if we're including it in a Christmas list, and this is my list so I get to include it, it is my favorite movie of all Christmas movies in that big box, right? I don't think that Lethal Weapon would be number 2. I think Lethal Weapon would be either 3rd or 4th. But my favorite traditional Christmas movie is Home Alone, which is a very obvious choice, but it's a movie that has meaning to me in kind of unconventional ways, in part, and this is something that I've mentioned on a previous podcast. The movie was crushing the box office, and I had more than one opportunity to see it in Massapequa, where I grew up, at the Movies at Sunrise Mall. And I was just such a disagreeable little punk that I punted twice. An opportunity to get in on the ground floor so that it would have been one of the brand name movies that I had seen in theaters, but I didn't. But I love Home Alone. It's a beautiful film to look at. And I would argue that non-Star Wars, non-Indiana Jones, it is John Williams' finest musical score. It is just amazing. And it really elevates the film. In much the way that his kind of underrated score for Jurassic Park brings that movie up a little bit, his work on Home Alone is so good, he didn't have to give you an A+ score. That movie was going to work anyway, but man, does he get that right. What a genius. To say he's the greatest living composer of film music would be to restate the obvious, but you know, the best John Williams story ever, and even if we don't know who he is, we've heard his work. And by who he is, if he were standing in front of you, would you be able to recognize him? I could. That's me. That's me. When Steven Spielberg was working on Schindler's List, which, as you can imagine, was not an easy film to make, to mount first off, to get it made, all the locations, to get all the performances right, to not make it overly too emotional. Like, he wanted to keep it under a certain level of control. He didn't want to make it maudlin. He was very, very focused. And after he finished shooting and he was working with John Williams, and they were trying to figure out some concepts for music and just in general, what approach was he going to take for the score? And John Williams, without a trace of irony, this is a very humble man, and he was, in his early 60s at the time. With no trace of irony, John Williams watched a lot of the footage that Spielberg had assembled for him and said, Steven, I don't know that I can do this. This is such an ambitious, you need a better composer than me to score a film of this magnitude. And Steven Spielberg supposedly said, John, you're absolutely right. They're all dead. And it's a bit of a morbid compliment, but you know what he's telling him. Some of the other great composers of film music, Bernard Herrmann, I mean, he's certainly comparable to John Williams. That's about it, though. That's about it. I mean, Williams certainly had peers, has had peers, from Jerry Goldsmith, James Horner, James Newton Howard, some of the real geniuses of the form. Maurice Jarre, another incredible composer of film music, Gabriel Yared. I mean, I could sit here naming Hans Zimmer. Williams is in a league of his own. He's in a class by himself, in my opinion. And his score for Home Alone is his best, as I said, outside of those franchises, in my opinion. What makes Home Alone sing is that for all the laughs and for all of the booby traps that Kevin McAllister pulls off, and the kind of over-the-top slapsticky work from two terrific actors, Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern, and Catherine O'Hara just killing it, John Candy showing up, and as only John Candy can and could, may he rest in peace, what an extraordinary performer he was. He just basically takes over the movie for his polka, polka, polka. He's great. But the movie has the themes of forgiveness. And, if you haven't seen the movie in a while, Kevin is very unlikable. He really is a poorly behaved brat of a kid. Now, he doesn't deserve what happens to him. And his uncle is, man, what a scumbag. And I've read, fan theories that the uncle is actually the villain, that he deliberately got rid of the tickets and made sure that Kevin stayed behind. Or that even, if you want to go even further down the rabbit hole, take the blue pill or the red pill or whatever it is, that Uncle Frank hired the wet bandits knowing the kid was going to be home and he wanted to bump him off. Now, I don't believe that, but when I was done, that is a great fan theory. Look what you did, you little jerk. Great actor. I forgot that guy's name, but he always played that kind of character because he just had a look like you want to kind of... But the themes of redemption, the themes of forgiveness, the character of the old man, I don't remember his name, but terrific actor, who was also in Escape from Alcatraz with Clint Eastwood. Man, he was terrific in that movie. But his pauses, his way of delivering his lines, the scenes that he shares with Macaulay, and they did the exact same thing with the Brenda Fricker character in Home Alone 2, where she's set up as well, maybe she's scary, or I heard that he killed somebody, or she killed somebody, or she's dangerous. And it turns out, in the case of Home Alone, he's just lonely. The scenes work, and the scene in the church is beautiful. It is not to me a religious film. It is not a godly retelling of the story of Christmas, but themes of love and faith and belief and the holiday spirit are there for all the laughs and all the slapsticky shit. When Catherine O'Hara says, "Merry Christmas, sweetheart," she sells it, because her character really wasn't particularly nice. Everybody takes turns being awful in this movie. The kid is bad. The mom overreacts. Uncle Frank is the worst. The dad, it's a lot of other fan theories. How the hell could this guy afford this house? Does he work for the mob? Is this Tom Cruise in the firm where he's working for that kind of a connected law firm? Wink, wink. Who knows? The movie is beautifully shot, impeccably well acted. Everybody looks great. The costuming is right on the button. You got that kind of late 80s, early 90s sheen to it. Everything works. And I've probably seen the original Home Alone. I've seen it at least 10 times, start to finish. I love it. Each time it works on me. The sequel I saw in theaters at the dearly departed Comac Multiplex off of Exit 53, LIE. It's just okay. Tim Curry is the best thing in the movie. And Tim Curry, another actor, he just cleans up. Whatever he's in, he takes it over. Sir, I'm afraid you're mistaken. Gold. Solid gold. But yeah, so we're going to rank. We're going to have Die Hard first. We're going to have Home Alone second. I'm going to go A Christmas Story third. Now, I also know that A Christmas Story gets played on TNT. They run it for 24 hours. It is a polarizing film. A lot of people just don't think it's funny. They don't find it humorous. I can't say that it's that the humor is dated because the film is now 40 years old and it's set probably in the 40s or 50s. So there really isn't much topical humor. Like nobody's making 1983 jokes that are now making no sense. My father was a big Gene Shepard fan. Gene Shepard, many people don't know who he is or who he was. He was one of the first kind of talk radio hosts. He was a storyteller, first and foremost. And when that was the entertainment, people like Gene Shepard would entertain with these long yarns that they would spin, often embellished, but mostly from life. And Gene Shepard wrote a number of books, and one of them was called, and it's an incredible title, In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash. And the events in the movie A Christmas Story were lifted from that book. And Gene Shepard originally was, he was going to have a greater role in the film, and there was actually talk that Spielberg, I think it would have been his next movie after he took part in the Twilight Zone, the movie, which I enjoy that, but that ended up being disastrous for other reasons. John Landis and deaths on the set of his segment. And just, again, that's a whole other podcast. But Spielberg wanted to make, and I don't know if it would have been called A Christmas Story. Nobody knows that part of it. But he wanted to make what we saw. He was going to do his own interpretation of it. And he had trouble getting along with Gene Shepard, which is strange because Gene Shepard was not known as a guy who was I guess he must have been more cantankerous and cranky than people thought. But Gene Shepard ended up, the voiceover, that's him. Ralphie's voiceover is the author of the book that the movie was based on, Gene Shepard. What I feel like that movie gets so right, and the little vignettes, the flashbacks, You'll Shoot Your Eye Out, all that stuff, the names of the characters, Scut Farkus. What a great name of a character, Scut Farkus. It's just a fantastic name. The movie nails the feeling of being a kid in holiday season. Better than Home Alone, better than any of the other movies that I know of. The excitement, the hoping against hope that whatever seeds you're planting in the thought processes of your parents are actually going to bear fruit and they're going to get you what you want. In my case, I want an Atari 2600. I want an Intellivision. I want this. I want. The movie gets all of those details exactly right. The annoying relatives that send you shit you don't want. Every kid deals with it, but there's going to be one year where you don't get anything that you want. And A Christmas Story nails it. And I love Darren McGavin as the old man. His next movie after that, he went unbilled in one of my favorites, The Natural with Robert Redford, where he plays, what's the name of the character? Gus Sands. Another great name for a character. But he plays a gambler. And you can see if you compare what he looks like in both movies, they seem like they were probably only shot a couple of months apart. He's kind of the same hair. McGavin is a very distinctive actor. And there were huge stretches in A Christmas Story where it almost seems like he's just not paying attention. And I kind of get that character. In other words, he's not engaged by his surroundings the way Peter McAllister is in Home Alone. He's just sort of doing his own thing. A little bit of a space cadet, reading the newspaper and grumbling about, I traded him around, and all this kind of shit. Like, who cares, right? But I love A Christmas Story, and it is a movie that, like Home Alone, I can watch it anytime. I find Home Alone to be more accessible and more moving. But, the scene in the Chinese restaurant towards the end of A Christmas Story, it almost looks like the takes are not correct and the actors are breaking character. That's how hard Melinda Dillon and Peter Billingsley, and I forgot the name of who played Randy, they're laughing so hard it feels like it was a blown take, that Bob Clark, the director who also did the original Porky's, just said, this is just too good, I can't. There wasn't supposed to be this level of laughter, but we're going to keep this in. The movie still has a sweetness to it. And I watched the sequel, decades later sequel that aired on HBO Max last holiday season, and it was good. It wasn't as good as the first one. It was A Christmas Story Christmas. Doesn't make my top 5. And Peter Billingsley, as an older Ralph, he comes back, and the film gets better as it goes along. The first hour, it just doesn't seem to be going anywhere in particular, but they have a kind of ace in the hole, an ace up their sleeve. And the last 20 minutes of the movie are so good that the rest of the movie then seems better by comparison. So that's one that I definitely recommend, even if it's not in any kind of, top whatever list. My 4th favorite Christmas movie is Lethal Weapon. Now, Lethal Weapon, unlike Die Hard, could be set at a different time, but it does still carry that feeling of Christmas and togetherness and family. And I don't think that it was just, let's just slap this together and make this a Christmas. I mean, one of my favorite kind of out there, outlier moments ever in any movie is Gary Busey, a great actor. Gary Busey as, he's not the main villain, but it feels like he's the main villain because he's so formidable, as Joshua, Mr. Joshua. He's looking for Danny Glover, his family, Roger Murtaugh in the movie, and he's looking for the wife and the kids at their house. And he basically breaks in. He's got his machine gun with him, and the TV is on, and it's playing A Christmas Carol, the Alastair Sim, the 1940s version, and the guy is saying, what day is it? Today. Gary Busey takes his gun and he blasts the television set into smithereens, and he snarls, "Goddamn Christmas!" For that moment alone, it's on the list. But Lethal Weapon is a great action film. It's one of the best examples of the buddy film. It's certainly a top 5 buddy film. But because it takes place at Christmas, and it's like the character of Martin Riggs, Mel Gibson in it, and one of his better performances, just a complete live wire, absolute electric performance by Mel Gibson. He seems out of control. His character is out of control. But the idea is that he is suicidal, and you reach a point, again, no spoilers, in the film where he is no longer coming across that way. And it feels like Christmas and this crazy case that he and Danny Glover's character get involved with are the reason why he doesn't want to die anymore. He doesn't want to die. He's ready to move forth with his life. As broken as he has been, he now has people that seem to care about him. And the movie ends with Jingle Bell Rock. And what a great song. We think of Die Hard. The weather outside is frightful, the fire, so let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Lethal Weapon ends with Jingle Bell Rock. And obviously one of the songs we think of with Home Alone, non-John Williams, is Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree. They're all such great songs, but they each fit the movie that they are in. And that, the songs kind of gained almost, if anything, more notoriety because of their appearances in these films. Now, if I have to say my 5th favorite, I'm supposed to love National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, right? I'm actually an OG Chevy Chase fan. I love Fletch. Fletch Lives is also a scream, and I'm a huge fan of Spies Like Us. So Chevy Chase as the kind of sarcastic, smarmy wise-ass works. I don't think that Clark Griswold is a good character for him. I'm in the minority here, but I find the character of Clark Griswold to just be an imbecile, just a fucking moron. And so I prefer Chevy when he is condescending, when he's the guy who is looking down on everybody, as opposed to the moron. And I just don't like Christmas Vacation. I don't find it funny. I think European Vacation sucks, and Vegas Vacation is terrible. First movie's okay. So Christmas Vacation will make the list of a lot of people. But as far as traditional, holiday films, I don't love It's a Wonderful Life. It's okay. It's also a more depressing movie than people who aren't familiar with it have been led to believe. But it's good. Bill Murray and Scrooge, that's a movie I really like. But I think I'm going to go with Elf. And Will Ferrell is another one of those performers who kind of go both ways with him. I love him in Elf. It's the joy. It's how he comes across with such joy. He won me over. Because I remember when Elf, 20 years now, that it came out and everyone was seeing it and everybody was raving about it. And they had raved about Old School, a movie that no. He won me over in Elf. The sheer joy with which he threw himself into the role of Buddy. Oh, and by the way, Peter Billingsley, Ralphie from A Christmas Story, in case you didn't know this, he's one of the elves. You see him early in the film. It's literally 20 years after A Christmas Story, but if you know what he looks like as an older person, you clearly see, holy shit, that's the kid from A Christmas Story. But James Caan in that movie, almost kind of, it's like he's out of a different movie. That was weird casting, but somehow it works. Caan gets it done. And Mary Steenburgen, another actress that, kind of, some people I don't really like her. It works. She's good in that movie. And it's just an enjoyable film, which also captures the spirit of the holiday season. And if you believe that this is possible, this is possible. And it's hopeful. It strikes a hopeful tone, and it leaves you feeling good, as Home Alone does, as Elf does, for sure. So if I have to give you two more Christmas movies, we're going to, temporarily remove Die Hard and Lethal Weapon out of there. I think I will go Scrooge with Bill Murray. It's one of the most kind of unlikable characters that he has played, and Bill Murray has made a career at playing protagonists who are very difficult to like. You can sometimes empathize with them, but man, Frank Cross, he's just an asshole. He's horrible. But he kind of gets a comeuppance in a way we don't expect. And in a sense, he is redeemed by the Karen Allen character because she's so nice. She's so nice. And we see that he wasn't always this way. That kind of circumstances conspired to make him this kind of an angry Cross. Was it a coincidence that his name was Cross? I don't think so. As Kevin said in Home Alone, I don't think so. So we'll go Scrooge. And I got into a debate with an old pal where he considered Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone a Christmas movie. That completely went over my head. I understand it. I don't see that as a Christmas movie. If you do, no problem. You go right ahead. But I don't see it. When I think of that movie, I never think of it, the fact that it takes place, in and around Christmas time. Whereas the other ones, I always do. There's a great shot, the kind of final brawl between Mel Gibson's Martin Riggs and Gary Busey's Joshua. There's a Christmas tree in the background. That's not an accident. They did that on purpose. They're just sort of doing the old subliminal Christmas, Christmas, Christmas. So if I got to go for one more. Yeah, it's not going to be Christmas Vacation. I think that I'm just going to have to call it. I don't think I even have 5. And Scrooge was a stretch. The movies that I like, the Christmas movies I like, are ones that I can and will watch over and over. And I don't watch Die Hard when it's Christmas. I should point that out. But somebody says, hey, let's watch a Christmas movie. Home Alone, A Christmas Story, Elf. To me, those are the kind of golden three. And all others are, because Scrooge is not a great movie. You know, I love Richard Donner, the filmmaker, and again, Bill Murray, great. It's not a great movie. There's huge chunks of it that really don't work. Carol Kane kind of gets on your nerves, and David Johansen is a riot. He's great. But the movie, there are stretches of it that don't work, and then the ending is, to me, incredible. And Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is more of a Thanksgiving film, because if you wanted to just say like a general holiday movie to put you in the holiday spirit, I would say Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, because that is a beautiful, wonderful film. Also, a hilariously funny comedy, but a movie with heart and a kind of a sense of wonder, which, hey, I'm all for that. You know, making you feel good about yourself, good about humanity, as rare as that might be. That these two guys who meet by chance, get on each other's nerves, but just end up coming through when it counts for Steve Martin's family. So, yeah, I think that's about it. I'm not a big fan of It's a Wonderful Life. A Christmas Carol with, a lot of people think Muppet Christmas Carol with Michael Caine. Not that great. The Christmas Carol version with Albert Finney. It's just not that great. Now, Rich Little, another name that a lot of the people under 40 have never heard of, an impressionist. He did a Christmas Carol for HBO where he played a ton of different characters, and he got to trot out dozens and dozens of voices. That was great because it made me laugh. It was funny, but I can't really put that. That was just like, it was a trifle, as they said. But let me know in the comments what some of yours are. And if you completely disagree with my 5, or if I missed something, because I know a lot of people, Christmas Vacation, as I said, they're gonna light me up. And that's fine. It's just, the movie doesn't work. It does nothing for me. I've only seen it once and I was bored. And at no time was I like, ooh, the spirit of Christmas. No. So with that, we've reached the end, believe it or not, of episode 32 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I want to thank you all once again very much for joining me. If you're catching the YouTube version of the podcast, don't forget to click like, smash that subscriber bell, or if you're planning on checking out the audio version on iTunes, Spotify, or the other audio platforms, please, if you enjoy the content, click like and subscribe. I'll be back real soon with episode 33, but until then, let's watch a Christmas movie.